Hey guys, welcome back to A View to Film. Before I start my episode, I just want to go ahead and give a special shout out to all the armed forces out there, and especially to someone that's near and dear to us, to our family, which is BB. I know you're listening to this episode and all the episodes, so thank you for your support. And, we just want to make sure that we give you a special shout out. And I have a little surprise for you. I have some people who wanted to also say thank you. So we're going to start with the first person.
Hi, BB. From the bottom of my heart, thank you so much for being our personal superhero, and thank you for your service. I love you, and I can't wait for you to come back home.
Hi, Vivi. We all love and miss you, and we can't wait to see you when you come back. Hope you're safe. Thank you for everything you're doing.
Thank you, Davis, for your service. I love you so much. Our family misses you. Bucci misses you. She barks all the time at the door. Maybe it's for me or for you, but we love you.
Hey, BB, thank you for your service. We love and miss you, and I can't wait to see you soon. We are praying for you every day, so thanks.
Hey, BB, it's your cousin Miguel. Just wanted to say that we're proud of you. You're definitely a superhero in real life, so thank you for your service. Can't wait to see you. Stay safe. See you soon, and I love you, bro.
Hi, BB. This is Alex. I just wanted to say thank you for everything you're doing for us, and you are awesome. We miss you, and we can't wait to see you in November.
Hey, Davis. Hope you're having a great time up there and staying safe, man. I love you. Can't wait to see you when you get back, man. Love you.
All right. So there you heard it, BB, from our special guest. And then now on to the podcast. What you're going to listen to is my Road to Avengers podcast, which was a quick conversation between me and some of my guests. We pretty much covered phase 1 and phase 2 before Infinity War, so look out for that next week. And one last thing I wanted to mention, and we do apologize ahead of time. One of my guests had a little bit of difficulty with the audio. Apologize for that ahead of time before you go do listen to the episode. So with that being said, I'm Luis Agustin, and this is A View to Film. Welcome back to A View to Film. I got a returning guest, my boy, Alberto Pichardo. Alberto, welcome back, brother.
Thank you.
And then I got a brand new guest, popping his podcast cherry, and recently engaged Mr. Tony Stark, Mr. Anthony Escobar. What's up, Tony?
Thank you. Just want to say thanks for the shout out of the engagement. Very good news all around. Shout out to my boy doing great things. I played the tape. Got to send love that way. But you know how it is.
We can just keep shouting each other out back and forth, but that's good though. I'm happy. Yeah, shout outs to Play the Tape, man. He gave me such a nice shout out in his podcast, and we really do appreciate it from the bottom of my heart, man. Thank you so much to him. So, fellas, what are we gonna talk about in this adventure today, huh?
Well, it seems like today we're going to be talking about a culmination of over 18 films in the Marvel Cinematic Universe?
That's right. I'm going to be talking about Road to Avengers, leading up to Infinity War. Spoke to some of my guests who are on here right now, and we decided that it would be best if, I guess, the way we broke it down was we wanted to talk about everything that led up to it, and feel it's only fair to educate some of you guys on, whoever doesn't know and whoever just jumps into like the ending of the films or comes into Avengers. That way we can fill you in on what's been going on, how we led up to it, the differentiations from the comics, and, just try to answer any of those questions because, and like I was telling my colleagues, a lot of the times that I've seen a lot of the reviews, nobody's really like taking the time to explain unless you're like on YouTube or something like that. But we'll try to give you like a quick background, touch on a couple of things that we wanted to talk about, and go from there. Right, fellas?
Yep. And of course, quick audience disclaimer. If you hear some random jiggling in the background, that is ice because all of us are currently here drinking it up and trying to make this podcast session a little bit more exciting with some alcohol fueled excitement. So just letting you guys know.
Jameson, please sponsor us.
Word.
Why are we seeking a sponsorship from Jameson? Why we can't shoot from account?
No, because that's what we're drinking.
And plus, we don't want to go, the full-on Latino route of just like Presidente sponsor us, because no, we're classified human beings. We divulge from other kinds of alcohol. All right.
Are you taking a shot at my boy A-Rod right now? Was that
Absolutely, absolutely. If you hear this podcast, A-Rod, you know what it is. You know what we're about.
Oh my
Talk to me when your rum is better than Presidente. Anyways, let's get back on topic.
All right. So before you guys and we cover like some of all the films, right? The first overall thing I do want to shout out that I had taken the time this week to rewatch some of the films, and obviously leading up to Avengers Infinity War. I just want to give a shout out to the actors, man, and all the physical training they do.
Definitely.
When I stop, I'm telling you right now, when I stopped and look at some of the stuff that they did in like these movies, I was like in awe. I'm like, wow, they must have trained for a while, like all of them, like they must have gone to some rigorous training. And I just want to give a shout out to all the actors that took the time and like Anthony just said, they took 18 years. Some of them have been doing this the entire run. I'm sorry, 10 years, 18 movies. And some of them have been doing this in the entire run. And it's just crazy to think about. You know what I mean, guys?
I mean, when you put it that way, I mean, imagine how Robert Downey Jr. literally came out. Like, this is a man who's already had a pedigree of movies under his belt.
Mm-hmm.
On the older side, if anything, for him to get into the shape that he's in, Chris Evans as well, to maintain the shape that he's in, to try to have that figure of Captain America. Shout out to, Scarlett Johansson, looking as lovely as ever, as always. Just to stay in tune, for just having the ability to just constantly movie in and out, training, dieting, the rigorous amounts of acting, just to be done with all of this is just amazing.
Exactly.
So shout out to all of them, man.
And also you got to point out the big major difference for Chris Evans from going from Fantastic
The
Four,
Human Torch.
exactly, from being the Human Torch to being somewhat whatever, to go to Captain America, America's
America's boy.
America's
the top dude, and keeping that physique up. That's crazy.
Alberto, you pick up a great point. Why don't we touch on that for a little bit before we even get into like the MCU official movies? Why do you think that it would? Well, I mean, I know it was beneficial towards his career, to Chris's career, but why do you think the studios decided to let him do that leap when normally we've never seen really actors in the same universe do the jump from one character to another? Once you've been branded one character, that's what you're branded for, right, guys? So why do you think they let him do that?
Well, if you think about it, first and foremost, the Fantastic Four itself wasn't under like the official quote unquote Disney startup. I guess one movie leading to the other. It was kind of just like a beforehand movie that happened, that kind of thing. So they gave him the opportunity, and he's gone above and beyond the role itself, I think.
Tony, what do you think?
I mean, it's very similar to how the original Hulk movie that we had seen in the past with Eric Bana. I mean, it's a huge jump from what we're used to seeing. And I think he was mostly allowed despite contractual issues or just simply because Fantastic Four never really jumped up that way,
right,
and wasn't as popular. I just love the fact that he was able to just literally strap on the boots of a brand new role in somewhat the same kind of universe, not necessarily the actual cinematic universe, and actually be able to do well and excel like no one has ever thought to be.
Right. I agree.
Mm-hmm. Also, on a side note, it's funny how Fantastic Four kind of was before this whole arc, before the Infinity War, and unfortunately it didn't work out for that franchise. But that franchise would have been very, very beneficial in this war itself.
So, curiously speaking, like they've rebooted Fantastic Four already a couple of times, right? So, one thing that popped out to me, like doing on the research, how would the MCU, now that they got Fox, how would be the best way for them to rebrand them again? Because they have to. They just have to bring in those stars. You know what I mean?
Well, first and foremost, you've definitely have to get some A-listers in there. I mean,
Right.
the people that they chose outside of Chris Evans and the girl who played the Invisible Woman, name escapes me. Outside of those two, no one else in that movie have like you barely even recognize outside of like B movies, if anything.
You're talking
So
about Jessica Alba, right? The first one.
yeah, exactly. So outside of those two, you don't really recognize anyone. So if you're gonna restart a franchise like that, literally third reboot, you got to start out with some really strong A-listers immediately to grasp the audience's attention. Without that, it's literally not going to be a running start. In the words of Tony Stark from Iron Man 1, sometimes you need to run before you learn how to walk. In this case, you have to sprint before you learn how to walk.
In,
So
in Fantastic Four, definitely you got to do that.
absolutely. Right.
I would say I don't necessarily think that the whole Fantastic Four have to be A-listers, because we've seen throughout these movies people who weren't that really big make their come ups. You know what I mean? Like, this is how they also do build their brand. So that's also another thing. I think that we need to look at maybe two people that are possibly on the come up and on the rise. Like, for example, might say or recommend, like, if you've seen Florence Pugh's work, if you've seen the last couple of movies that she's amazing, bro. Like, Midsommar, she was like carried that movie. She's not that big popular right now, but if you have her as a Sue Storm, right? That's the character.
Yeah.
Like, if you sign her, I'm like, bro, like, you're gonna get some some young adults. She's in her early 20s, and she's gonna bring in some people that will bring that franchise back. Then you sign an A-lister to play Reed Richards, and okay, now we're cooking. You know what I mean? So I don't think necessarily it has to be all A-listers, but definitely one A-lister to two in the team, and then two other people that are on the rise, so we can bring the younger crowd more into these movies and keep the generation going.
Yeah, because that reboot with Fantastic Four was just horrible. Thankfully, Michael
B.
Jordan like survived off of that group,
yes,
and became what he became now. Thankfully, but the rest of the guys was just like, damn.
I know.
Because Jesus, if that was like the last culmination of his work up until now, to all the great stuff that he's done,
exactly,
it would just be like, ugh.
So.
Chills.
Exactly. I agree, man. And shout out to Michael B, man. You've really come a long way after that. So guys, let's start here. So MCU officially, right? Not unofficially, but officially started with Iron Man in 2008, correct?
Correct.
So I'm looking up, I got the list pulled up right here, so we all have a reference.
Phase 1.
Hulk also came out that same year in 2008, which was obviously the Edward Norton Hulk.
Exactly.
Which one you want to tackle first? You want to tackle Edward Norton or you want to tackle Iron Man?
No, Edward Norton. Let's go.
Edward Norton? All right, cool. Straight off the bat, why did they recast him?
Edward Norton is a legend in the movie business. So he was going to pull a lot more weight than, let's say, Robert Downey Jr. I would think.
Tony, what do you think?
I mean, again, Robert Downey Jr. already had a couple of movies under his belt, but none of which that were like monumental Oscar, worthy movies, like, for example, Fight Club and stuff like that. So most of the movies that he's had is just like early 90s, a couple late 90s, maybe a couple late into the 1980s. If anything, a couple like a romantic comedy here and there, nothing too major. But I would have to agree with Alberto, like just casting Edward Norton himself to be the Incredible Hulk is, to this day, like I tell my fiance all the time, like, in my personal opinion, outside of Robert Downey Jr., that had to have been the best casting for a character in the Marvel Cinematic Universe to date. I mean, we're talking the looks. He's skinny, short, scrawny, looks smart. You have to pull off that scientist look, that not necessarily weak, puny Banner look, but, like enough to be like, to go from one extreme to the next.
Right.
And the simple fact that he was able to portray that well in that movie, which a lot of people really underrate, was amazing. And to this day, that is my version of the Hulk in my mind. No one's ever going to tell me different. Sorry, Mark Ruffalo, you're not Edward Norton. And Eric Bana, you're not even in the conversation. Just saying.
No, and also the Incredible Hulk in the Edward Norton movie was actually the closest thing to Hulk that we know. Because as you know, the Hulk prior to him, what was his actor's name?
Eric Bana.
No, the other guy, the other movie that was previous.
Lou Ferrigno, the original Hulk.
No, before, after him.
Mark Ruffalo?
The one that you're not thinking about.
Wait, no, Lou Ferrigno's the original Hulk.
Right.
And you got Eric Bana, Edward Norton, and Mark Ruffalo. Am I missing somebody?
Yeah, you are. There's one before him. There's one before Edward Norton because Edward Norton replaced him because he was so bad.
Please educate us, sir.
I'll tell you right now. I will tell you in just a moment. But him, like he was. I think he was good as Eric Banner, but the Hulk, he was just like mad chubby.
So you're saying the CGI was bad for that version?
It was just very bad.
Well, guys, we can't blame 2003 for how bad the graphics are. They just got better. You know what I mean? Like, I can't. I'm not going to hold the movies accountable to.
No, but the movie was horrible. I mean, let's be brutally honest.
I agree.
I agree. Through and through, nothing like the origin story to begin with. The closest thing to an actual origin story of the actual Incredible Hulk has to be the Edward Norton version of the Hulk, bar none.
Oh yeah, of course.
But we can all agree that superhero movies in general have benefited from the increase in CGI, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
All right. Tony, question for you. So why do you feel that or Edward Norton did get recasted? Like, what happened in your eyes? Or like, what would you have done differently from a producer standpoint?
I mean, from a producer standpoint, I would probably give him the same deal that Robert Downey Jr. did. I mean, when it came, or basically boiled down to it, it was just contractual issues. You know, like at the end of the day, yes, the first stepping stone was Iron Man from 2008, and Robert Downey Jr. ended up getting a rather lucrative deal. But the only reason why is because if people really look back and do their homework, this was the first of many, meaning Marvel originally already thought that they wanted to create multiple movies to create a Marvel Cinematic Universe where they would have characters outside of what's already been licensed out, like Spider-Man or the Fantastic Four, to just literally be standalone movies and be able to hold their own and still gain popularity. And a lot of people don't even realize that when the first Iron Man movie came out and when it was even announced in Comic-Con, right away you had, you know, magazines like Variety and several different others already shunning it, saying, well, it looks like Marvel's going to roll out an entire cinematic universe and they're starting out with B-listers. So if anything, that was like one of the biggest, you know, like slaps in the face to the actual Marvel, you know, company as it is, and Marvel Studios that are just starting out. And they knew that, hey, listen, this is going to be it. If we either live and die by the sword when it comes to Iron Man, if everybody loves it, they love it, and then we could build on this. If they don't, then we're basically effed. We're, you know, like at the end of the day, this is a huge long shot, and it ended up paying off. So a lot of people need to understand that not everyone can start a franchise like Star Wars did with George Lucas, coming up with a very lucrative story in depth where that you could actually build upon. This is stories that are already based off source material. So you're already going to get critics right out the gate based on people who are diehard comic book lovers and immediately start critiquing the simple fact that, hey, this doesn't, you know, match up to this actual origin story. It really happened like this. Or, you know, that person doesn't look like the character that I know in the comic books or any kind of rendition of it.
How is Edward Norton, or if he is, different from the comics and the Hulk? Could you explain that for the listeners?
Well, based on build alone, he's arguably the most equal to the actual build of Bruce Banner in the comics, I would say. When you really look at like the actors that have portrayed him, including Eric Bana and Mark Ruffalo, granted, you know, they're a little rough around the edges.
Yeah.
Each one are, you know, acting from standards different in time, you know, and Edward Norton's really right in the middle. And I would have to say, like, from a glance, if you were to literally line them up in a police room to be like, you tell me which one of these people is Eric Banner, you're going to point at Edward Norton 10 times out of 10. So in terms of difference, just alone, I would just have to say is just like, I don't know, maybe it's just the pedigree of acting, so to speak. Again, it's different for everyone, but and yeah, the CGI really did play a toll. But again, it's just the storytelling from like each of these movies, especially the ones that lead up to like the Infinity Saga that culminate the Infinity War, is just amazing for each and every single one.
No, yeah,
So, yeah, go ahead, Alberto. You were saying?
no, yeah, you guys were right. It was Eric Bana that you guys were talking about.
Thank you, sir.
His
10 minutes later, but thanks for the refresher.
no, just trying to make sure.
I get the point for that one. So, all right, guys. So we dissected the Hulk. So Iron Man, Robert Downey, he gets casted. He's brought in. He has an amazing opening weekend. Like everybody just goes out. They go see Iron Man. There's so much hype about it. What is it that, and I'll start with you, Alberto. What is it to you that brought you in or pulled you into the MCU when Iron Man signed on or when you first saw that film?
But just watching that movie, it was just like, I'm Iron Man. I'm here. Like, we're going to do this. That's what it felt like. He was a perfect cast to become Iron Man. He has his past before that movie. For that movie specifically, it was just like pretty much from the beginning to the end, it was Iron Man.
Correct. Yeah. I'm not going to ask Tony because he's biased, so we'll move on.
I mean, hey, I got a tattoo of the band, all right? So totally biased.
Another slight thing that I would say is that they never showed the quote unquote alcoholic side of the Iron Man saga, so to speak.
Oh, okay, that's a good point. Could you elaborate for the listeners about like that's a big thing in the comic books?
Yeah, Iron Man himself is an alcoholic. He's has troubled past. His father died, his mother died, etc. So he's pretty much alcoholic, but at the same time, he's pretty much one of the best superheroes in the Marvel series at the same time. So it's kind of crazy how they didn't add that part. They kind of tweaked it so that they could kind of separate themselves movie-wise from the original story, which is still good. But just a little side story.
No, that's true. That's true. Tony, why do you feel that they never brought that out from or rehashed it from like a comics perspective?
Well, the best way to describe that would be if they're trying to generate an audience going right out the gate with something so heavy, especially when they're attempting to grasp an audience that is young, that's going to grow up on these movies and things of that nature, to introduce something so heavy as alcoholism would be a huge turnoff. So they just attempted to just divulge from that subject in general, but they did in fact introduce the fact that he is troubled due to the loss of his family, which a lot of people can relate to. Again, not saying that alcoholism isn't something that a lot of people would be able to relate to or things of that nature, but if you're trying to start a franchise with something, especially when you want to grasp not only a young audience but an audience that everyone can relate to of all ages, last thing you want to do is introduce alcoholism.
So not to pivot too far, but and I'll start with you, Alberto. Who is more flawed, Batman or Iron Man?
I still give it freaking Bruce Wayne. his story is just insane. It's just like one thing after another, and then the way that he lives his life during becoming quote unquote Batman is just another thing that just keeps on escalating. I personally don't think it's nowhere near to what Iron Man is going through or has gone through.
Right. Tony, what do you think?
Oh, no, I agree. Batman is fucked up beyond all measure. He's full on FUBAR. But at the end of the day, just, like everything that he's gone through, 100%, you can't compare that to Iron Man. But if you had to compare the similarities of, Marvel characters and DC characters, Iron Man is definitely the Batman of the Marvel Cinematic Universe.
That's right. That's right. That's why I compared the two. And I promise that that's the last time I'm going to mention him on this podcast. So we're talking about Marvel movies. So-
For the audience, full disclaimer: this guy is super biased towards Batman. For the record, just letting you know.
That's why I'm not going to mention him anymore. I just one question. I had to put a little plug. Boop. E-job.
No, I'll put the other plug because the separation between, I guess, Tony Stark and Black Panther would be the equivalent of Batman.
That's true. That's true. That's very true. All right, guys. So here's an important question as we've wrapped up the very beginning of 2008. Those recast choices that happened, the Ed Norton, and I'm going to throw in Terrence Howard. Do you feel that they regret these choices that they didn't sign on? Especially, I feel like Terrence Howard especially regrets it because of what he did. What do you think, guys?
That's his fault.
I mean, honestly, well, at least when it comes to Terrence Howard, I would say not necessarily because he did end up doing like that Fox show Empire or whatever. So he's still making money some way or another, but not, multi-billion-dollar box office movie money like Marvel has, and he's an idiot for not re-signing. But again, he was a prima donna on the set, so you reap what you sow. What can I say?
Yeah.
No, I know it. And then he wanted to be like top billed, like on the next movie, and I'm just like, bro, like, come on,
you're not.
man.
No, bro. You're a side character. Stay your lane.
Yeah, you're a
Stay your
side
lane.
Let's like be honest.
You are the
here.
Robin. You are the Robin.
No, he's not Robin. He's worse than Robin.
Wow.
That's not fair, dude. That's not fair.
This
Oh
show-
man, I loved War Machine.
Do not undergrade Robin. Robin is the man.
No. I'm not gonna say that. I'm gonna say I really want to give a shout out to War Machine because in the Iron Man cartoons, when I was little, I was like, damn, I love War Machine too, and I would pick him as a character in the games as well. So no, I'm not gonna let you play him like that.
I'm gonna play him Robin El Duro.
So, man, it's smacking the table. Gato cerrado, coño.
All right.
Listen, we got a huge Nightwing fan over here, clearly, because he's
Oh
like,
my god.
Dick Grayson.
So,
see what I mean? I said nothing. Okay.
So we established the foundation of the MCU. They introduced us to Ed Norton. They introduced us to Iron Man, which is Tony Stark. And then the very next year, they come out with Iron Man 2 immediately. Question for the panel. Why did they jump so quickly right away to giving a sequel in 2010, like so quickly to Iron Man instead of like pivoting to other characters?
Due to the success of the first Iron Man. They wanted to continue building on the story to see if the audiences were willing to grasp what has already happened in The Incredible Hulk, especially with the cameo that he did at the end, basically tinting towards the Avengers. The same thing with Iron Man, with Samuel L. Jackson coming in as a cameo for Nick Fury, again, trying to build based on those little teasers. They decided to move on to Iron Man 2 to continue the story so they could further build into what ends up being Thor later on for the next movie following.
Question for you guys, and Alberto, I'll let you handle this one. Is Nick Fury in the comics the person who does get the Avengers together, or do the Avengers come together organically? Because I honestly really don't know.
If I remember correctly, yeah, he is the one. He's the puppeteer, essentially, putting everybody together in the behind the scenes, essentially. Well, not behind the scenes, because he's asking every single person individually to please join to become the Earth savior, essentially.
So then they come in the very next year as well. So we got Iron Man 2, then Thor comes out, and we get our first Chris that's introduced to us. And what did you guys think about this film? Tony, I'll start with you.
Thor, the first film, not gonna lie. Chris Hemsworth was a good casting role for the actual character of Thor. But in terms of the story, it was a little bit lackluster, to be brutally honest, a little lacking. Outside of the fact that they introduced MacGuffin from Iron Man 2 to introduce the tease of Thor, to be honest, was basically what made me even watch the Thor movie to begin with. But if it wasn't for the Thor movie, we would not have been introduced to one of my personal favorite cinematic villains of all time, which is Loki, who for in my personal opinion, definitely makes that movie. Without
May I ask
him,
you a
that movie
question?
would have sunk like a sunk of bricks. What's up?
So before you talk about Loki, because I actually want you to go in depth as to why he is one of your favorite. So they tease him, right? And I remember this from the comic that they do tease Thor a lot, where you show his hammer. In the comics, like how many iterations of Thor are there? Because I feel like they do tease the hammer out a lot, and there's always like another Thor that comes in and picks up the hammer. Like, could you elaborate a little bit on that? Maybe like enlighten the viewers.
Well, over the course of time, from my own recollection, there have been 3 reiterations of Thor, not including the Ultimates version of it. But the only reason why I even count 3 is because, granted, the actual Nick Fury that we see throughout the entire cinematic universe, disclaimer for all that don't even really know, originally he was a white guy. Originally he was cast as a full-on white guy that even at one point was cast as David Hasselhoff as a movie. So the Samuel L. Jackson that you see today is the Ultimates version of Nick Fury.
What does ultimate mean?
So in comics or comics in general, they do like little small reboots, some of which like DC that actually do reboots based on a major arc that has happened to reset the timeline kind of stuff with Flashpoint,
Right.
things of that nature. With Marvel, they do small soft reboots where they just do small retellings of each character, their origins and things of that nature. With Ultimates, it was more geared towards an adult audience. So when I say adult audience, meaning they don't sugarcoat anything, everything is in your face, borderline Spawn level kind of violence kind of stuff, from domestic violence and the like. Like they don't sugarcoat anything.
So from PG-13 to rated R, hardcore, like, yeah, here's the best version of it, right?
Real quick. So those are the ones that most of the fans read.
So here's another thing I want clarification for, right? Isn't it true that once we got the Samuel L. Jackson Nick Fury version, then he was made into a comic book, correct? Is that the one that's currently being iterated?
No, actually, it was the comic book version that came out first, and
Oh,
then
really?
the cinematic version. Yeah. So it was funny because in an actual interview for the first Iron Man movie, he's a huge, believe it or not, he's a huge comic book lover. Watches anime like crazy, the whole nine. He does his thing. It just so happens that he picked up an Ultimates book at one point, and he was like, "Holy shit, that's me!" Like he didn't even realize that he was being used as a figure for Nick Fury. So it's not that he wasn't quick. No, he wasn't quick to be like, "I'm suing." No, he was actually flattered by it. He was like, "Holy shit, that's me!" So I found that very, very cool, very, very humbling, if anything, from his character. But again, like everything that led up to him and for him being cast as Nick Fury, which has been another hero. Believe me, I'm super biased for all the audience here, I'm super biased by Marvel. That's why I'm here to begin with. So I would always gush out of my feelings of like how much I love this.
Right.
But at the end of the day, DC sucks, Marvel lives. Go on.
Do you, Alberto, here's a question for you. Do you think that Nick Fury, the decision to have Samuel L. was the best decision that we got?
Oh, of course, hands down. Like I wouldn't think of anyone else to do that role, because that role, he's very charismatic when it needs to be. He's very sarcastic. He's serious when he needs to be. He's literally does it all in the short amount of time that he has in each film or whatever scene that he has. He grasps every single individual watching. Like, I'm Nick Fury. You need to listen to me right now.
May I throw you guys an alternate universe? What if it's Morpheus, Lawrence Fishburne?
Hell no. I was just literally thinking about that right now.
Yep. I knew you were. I read your mind. I read your mind, and I'm like, let me.
No, he can't. No, he can't pull. I think he can't pull the audience. He can't pull anything nowhere near Samuel Jackson. In this case.
Okay. Okay.
And they're just calling Morpheus every single time they look at him. Like, let's be fucking serious. Like, come on now.
I know. All right, so we get that. Anthony, real quick, before I move out to the next Avenger that was introduced, why is Loki one of your favorite villains of all time? Is it because of comic book or movies?
I would say both. I mean, in the comic book, he's done some really dubious things, incredibly clever things.
Like what?
Um, I mean, for the simple fact that he's constantly tricking Thor's dumbass left and right, constantly tricking him into his own death. I don't know, maybe 4 times in the comics at this point.
Wow.
Like, yeah, it's ridiculous. He's done so much, but at the end of the day, in the cinematic universes, or at least a realm of it, honestly, the person who portrays him, Tom Hiddleston, has done a great job of portraying his dubiousness, his energy on like literally on every single scene, and the simple fact that he is easy to relate to for anyone that has siblings. And it has nothing to do with whether or not you're jealous of them or not. Because at one point or not, if you have a brother or sister, you're like, damn, that person's getting that last piece of cheese. I wish I got that last piece of cheese. That entire energy and that the best way to describe it is just like that's literally his logic for everything. He's a stepbrother, he doesn't belong, he wants it all, he's jealous of his older brother. So what can I do to get the things that I want and to be seen in the eyes of all? So his villainous character is constantly driven based on his own logic and his own perceptions of what he thinks should be. And I can't argue with that, especially it's easy to relate to. And not for nothing, he's a very entertaining character to watch on film, not like bar none. You can't argue that.
That's true.
He did a great job in the Avengers.
Can't argue that. So we get introduced to Captain America, right? After Thor, who comes out the following year, right? I'm looking at the film breakdown. Cap, we get the backstory, how he came up. He had the super soldier serum. And we also get introduced to the Red Skull, which was played by another reference to the Matrix. Your boy Hugo Weaving, who is like an agent and he's a Red Skull. Like, fantastic casting. I think that he's one of my favorite villains I've seen like in film as well. As far as like MCU movies, you know what I'm saying? Like, he brings on like this kind of energy, and like Hugo Weaving just entirely as an actor brings on great energy. So I love to see him whenever he's in a movie, but in general, like I think that that's what made Captain America like really shine, because when you cast such a great villain like that.
I mean, it doesn't help that not only did you get, Agent Smith to be the villain of the movie,
Exactly.
but, like that the casting overall, well, I mean, let's be honest for that movie. Again, I'm not a huge fan of Captain America, the first movie, to be brutally honest. It wasn't the greatest, but in terms of casting for all the roles, from Agent Smith to recasting Chris Evans as, Captain America, what's his face? The person who plays the general in that movie, when Harrison Ford tells him, like, I didn't kill my wife, he goes, I don't care.
Oh, Tommy Lee Jones.
He was literally the comedic relief of that entire movie, bar none. Like, oh my God, somebody get that kid a sandwich. Like, Jesus, like everything about him in that movie was hilarious.
100%.
So, what's so great about the Marvel Cinematic Universe, or basically the Infinity Saga to begin with, this is actually the first film out of everything we've seen up until this point that actually introduces or teases a possible Infinity Stone.
Okay. So how did they do that? Retell it for the listeners.
So, Berto, what was it that they ended up unraveling, or what was Hugo Weaving's character looking for?
Yeah, the Tesseract officially, I guess, started the whole war itself in this movie. One, they introduced Captain America, Chris Evans, but also, introducing the Tesseract, and then we later find out that it's one of the Infinity Stones.
Perfect. So now we move on to the actual Avengers. And now this is where I'll let you guys, go ahead and tell me what you think about the first iteration of the Avengers directed by Joss Whedon.
So I'm not a huge fan of Joss Whedon to begin with, because, again, based on the Marvel Cinematic Universe, the only movies that he really has under his belt are, I believe, to be The Avengers and Age of Ultron, which, again, I will admit, when the first Avengers came out, was awesome and amazing. Age of Ultron, though, I think we could all agree that was a little bit underwhelming compared to what the Avengers was.
I guess that's just such a big burning question for me. Why, to you guys as a comic book fan, and like I know where I'm going to jump ahead, but let's go ahead and do that. Like, in your thoughts, why is it that Age of Ultron fell so short to you?
Well, every movie previous to Age of Ultron, it was kind of a escalator feel in a sense that everything was progressing to something, or every movie was pushing the envelope, so to speak. Age of Ultron in itself, there was a lot of ups and downs, more than downs than anything. At the end of the movie, it kind of pushed the limit, so to speak. But also, they didn't really explain a lot of the characters. So, like for example, Scarlet Witch, they never said, "Hey," they never hinted like, "Hey, this is Magneto's child." These are the kind of things that you would know either if you have someone that knows about the story or if you're into the comics, like these little hints that would help boost up the movie in itself.
Tony, why do you think that was important for us to know that that those were Maximov's, the Maximov's twins? Like, why was that important? Because it's true. I knew because I had some comic book knowledge, but like the average fan, definitely, like I know, like I looked at my like producers or anybody that have gone to the movies and seen them, like they're like, oh, who the hell are those guys?
Exactly. I mean, outside of a little like MacGuffin cameo at the end of a movie, you can't really explain how they're introduced in Age of Ultron. That's why I find it to be one of the more disappointing films of culmination because just literally reiterating on what Berta was saying, we look at phase one, every single film built up to what the Avengers was, meaning they introduce all the characters, they give them the standalones, the reason why they're there, and why they would end up in the Avengers. So if Age of Ultron was supposed to be the culmination of what they thought was phase two, all those movies leading up to that, and this includes Iron Man 3, Thor Dark World, Captain America the Winter Soldier, and the Guardians of the Galaxy, not outside of a cameo, they don't introduce who these Maximoffs are. They don't even show any relation to their true origins. And then at the end of the day, with the Age of Ultron, is just it came out of nowhere, meaning like it's not like Thanos showing up in Infinity War, where we all know up to this point that it's leading to him, especially after the cameo of the end of the Avengers. This is just like a random mistake that Tony Stark did while they were raiding a random Hydra base kind of stuff. So it was just like it seemed like they were scrambling for a villain that they needed to come up with to just be like, we need another huge major villain, Loki level or Thanos level to just throw in there in between phases because we need something. Not saying that Ultron isn't a viable villain. I mean, comic book wise, he's one of the worst, 100%. But just the way that they portrayed it led up to them was just very disappointing.
So here's two things, so we can go ahead and start wrapping that part up. Number one, and like this is like a little piece of trivia that I found. Not sure if you guys read up on it, but they were supposed to release Thanos right then. Obviously, we all can agree that Josh Whedon, sorry, Josh Whedon, wasn't ready to direct Thanos, right? And the build up was way better, obviously, leading up to Avengers: Infinity War. That's number one. That's just my personal opinion. But number two, if they tell him, okay, you're gonna do Thanos, and then like you know how these studios are, then last minute they're like, oh, scrap it, chill, and they made him scramble. I don't feel it's fair that we judge him also that harshly because he had to scramble to find a viable villain. So I guess I have two questions for you guys, and I'll let Alberto start off. My first question is, if you had to scramble, what else would you have picked with knowing your comic book knowledge? And then number two, would you just have been like, screw it, I'll just do Thanos anyway? Or just, what could you have done with just such short notice since the fans want something else and you want to keep the hype train going?
Well, at that point, they already showed all five stones where they were, or basically the fact that these five stones existed. Now, as far as the character itself, I think they picked the right character. The only problem is that he was another Marvel character in another separate movie that's not a part of this franchise. That's the only money quarrel I would say. Like But then at the same time, it's like, who else would you pick? Especially at such a short notice when you have someone else.
Tony, what do you think?
I mean, to be brutally honest, if they had the ability to implement the rights from Fox, I would say a perfect villain for this second phase. Granted, if the movie's built up differently, and if they were going to go from left field like Age of Ultron, I would honestly say Magneto. That way, they would be able to introduce the concept of mutants, and then introduce the X-Men and all that. So that way, they would be ready for Phase 3 and have a point for Infinity War. To be brutally honest.
Yeah, you also have to add that side note that Mickey Mouse didn't own X-Men yet.
That asterisk.
He didn't own Fantastic Four yet. So that little side note, curveball, so to speak, couldn't be used.
Mickey Mouse is Disney, for those who don't know. But I was gonna say, so then, all right. So then, here, what if then they own Fox? Why not Doctor Doom as your second villain? That's always been one of my other favorites too, if they build him up correctly.
Because I would say Doctor Doom is my full disclosure. Doctor Doom is my all-time favorite villain of all time. I would leave him for somewhere in either Phase 3 or Phase 4. Not necessarily Thanos level, but when you go from Thanos, you need something next level higher than him. And the next person that's next level higher than him, comic book wise, would have to be Doctor Doom. The only other guy. And that's for anyone that has true knowledge of comic books and the whole nine. So that's why I wouldn't introduce him this early, unless it was just a dry run for him to like basically get his shit together and then come back stronger than ever kind of shit. At least that's my 2 cents.
Also, you also got to think about he's more geared to the Spider-Man verse than anything. So
no, he's more geared to the Fantastic Four verse.
Okay. Well, since the Fantastic Fours didn't exist, essentially, because Disney didn't have them, you could have kind of wheedled him into the Spider-Man side. But you had to develop him into the Avengers world, so to speak. You couldn't just throw him in there. Because people are going to be like, who's this guy with like a misty helmet? They're not going to know who he is.
Yeah, just some metal dude.
Yeah. So that's what I'm saying. There have to be some sort of build-up. And since you don't own Fantastic Four, the other loophole, so to speak, would be Spider-Man. And then you can kind of introduce him there and say, hey, this guy is, X, Y, and Z, versus just saying, hey, it's Dr. Doom. Da, da, da.
Oh man, that is very true. That is very true. I think that it would it would have been crucial to kind of like build it up, but then we run into our other issue with is that we still didn't have Sony for all the people that didn't know signed, right? And they were developing Andrew Garfield in his solo movies. Would Andrew Garfield have worked for you guys?
Well, it boils down to him or Tobey Maguire. So those are really the only 2 choices we really have in front of us. I mean, outside of The Social Network, from when I saw Andrew Garfield for the first time, really, I mean, I guess. But if I had to choose between him and Tobey Maguire, not for nothing, I've been tainted by Spider-Man 3 and, his cry fest of just, if you want to watch a man literally cry for an hour and 30 minutes, go ahead and watch Spider-Man 3 and then maybe 30 minutes of actual comic action, so to speak. So I'm a little biased on that end. But at the end of the day, I mean, if I had to choose, like, bar none, I would be like, yeah, I guess Andrew Garfield. Why? Because I guess he's skinnier, taller, and looks geekier. What can I say?
Garfield, to me, would be hands down. I would even think it twice. He's really good at Peter Parker. He's really good in the Spider-Man side of things. He pretty much he revamped Spider-Man in itself. He actually saved that side of the franchise, I would think. Unfortunately, they didn't pick him to continue it for whatever reason.
Okay, that's fair. So we covered like the basic foundation of the movies, right? Out of all the Avengers in this universe, and we can pick anyone you want, we finally got our casting recast. We did everything. So I'll start with you, Alberto. Out of all the Avengers, just take your time, take a minute to think about this. Do you like the actor choices? Is there any recast you would have done personally besides the one that they've done already?
Mm, as far as actors, I think I would probably keep it the same. I can't really think of anyone else that would take anything else. Like I would see like what we were talking about earlier, the Edward Norton swap, because he would just take too much time, and also he's taking a role of the Hulk, which the Hulk can honestly just like overpower the movie just in itself. So it's like kind of a win-win. Um, but I don't think I would probably recast anybody. It's just a matter. What I would, I guess, probably tweak up would be, I guess, the roles, giving people certain leg ups versus others. But character-wise, no.
Anthony?
I mean, if I had to really change anything outside of Mark Ruffalo in terms of casting, that's a tough one. I mean, Iron Man, down pat. Chris Evans did his thing. Scarlett Johansson, yeah, she did her thing. Nick Fury, bar none.
You're biased.
It's the actual
Seems like you're
person.
biased. ScarJo.
I mean, if anything, if I had to say anything about casting choices, off the top of the head, I really wouldn't change anything too much. But what I would say, who I do want to join,
Okay.
John Krasinski. I think he would be a great Mr. Fantastic.
Ooh, you talk to us.
I had to throw that in there. I think, he has the build, he has a physique, he looks smart right out the gate. We don't know that. Again, he's an actor, who knows?
Right.
Just give him some silver streaks on his end, and we already know his acting repertoire, not from The Office, but from other films as well.
Right.
Yeah. And stuff like that. I think he would be a great casting choice for Mr. Fantastic. As for the rest of the crew, it's up for debate. But I would like to see him as Mr. Fantastic, and bring my boy Ryan Reynolds, Deadpool. We need him back in.
We definitely need your boy Deadpool to join the cast. I really do want to give you a big shout out for naming that, because Krasinski, I think he would be amazing in the Fantastic Four. And like we are saying, he could bring that A level, to, like I was saying, like I'm hypothesizing like Florence Pugh as his wife, and then maybe we can get somebody else in the mix for Johnny Storm, and I don't know who we would cast as a Thing. What do you guys think, Alberto?
At this point, it could be anybody, but
I know. I'm trying to think of like someone that's not a nobody, but also could be a possibility, like what we were talking about earlier. Damn, I don't know.
I was gonna say something. I think that we can't go also too old too, because remember, like Robert Downey, he had so many years doing this, and now you and Chris Evans, like you just get tired. You know what I mean? Like you want to do other things and other projects in your life, so they have to be ready to commit at least a good 5 to 7 years to 2 to 3 movies, at least, not including team up movies, which can bring you to 10 years. You know what I mean? So that's also why I keep urging for our like fantasy draft for the Fantastic Four is that we go young, as young as we can, that have upcoming stars build that franchise again.
How about this? How about we, again, because at the end of the day, it's just really an introduction story.
Right.
Again, totally off the wall. Because at this point, he's mostly just going to be CGI, if anything, at this point.
Right.
Like Groot with Vin Diesel. Why not have The Rock be the Thing? Big brolic dude, transforms into the Thing. Boom, just CGI for the rest of the franchise with his voice. Why not?
Alberto?
John Hamm.
For who, the Thing?
That's the Thing.
Nah. I think that if we really want it to be box office, bro, if you bring in The Rock, we are getting butts in the seats, man. Like that 400%. Like, look at what your boy did with Jumanji. Like Jumanji, guys, we're talking about here.
Well, it's mostly him and Kevin Hart, but not to divulge what he's done.
Right.
He is an A-lister through and through.
All right, guys. So just to sum up everything we spoke about, now we're going to lead into the actual Infinity War. I'm going to start with you, Alberto. Why don't you give us a quick summary based on the comic? How did we lead to Infinity War on the comic book side, so people can pretty much get the grasp? Take a minute, describe it in your own words.
As far as comics side, I would give the hands to Anthony.
Anthony, we pass the buck to you, my brother.
I mean, if I had to choose a reference based on what they were trying to emulate from the actual Marvel Cinematic Universe, it would have to be the Infinity Gauntlet from 1991, Jim Starlin. Uh, I mean, a lot of things were different. I mean, just right out the gate, just literally the first couple of panels, from what we see in the Infinity War, again, Thanos shows up, already has one of the stones in hand, wreaks havoc. We'll literally dissect that more later, but one of the major events that starts off is Hulk being sent through the Sanctum Sanctorum of Doctor Strange, and the iconic words that he says is "Thanos is coming, Thanos is coming." Based on the comic book itself, guess what, ladies and gentlemen? In the comic, Norrin Rad, aka the Silver Surfer, is actually the individual that says that those iconic words, "Thanos is coming, Thanos is coming." So with just that alone, a lot of people need to realize that when it comes to Marvel Cinematic Universe, again, they're using events, and it's very loosely based off the source material. So again, they couldn't introduce some of these characters in the culmination of it. Again, we're talking X-Men characters, Deadpool, Fantastic
Fantastic
Four.
Four.
So they had to be able to do what they could with what they had. So 1,000%, I applaud the Russo brothers to be able to do what they were able to do with the limited amount of, characters they were able to divulge in.
Right.
But I like the fact that they were able to at least create some homages to, the source material, so that way they know, hey, guys, we know what you guys want. We couldn't give it to you, but we're giving you a
Right.
semblance of it. You know what I mean?
So my next important question, and as we're wrapping this one up, this is our pre-Avengers podcast. They tease us with Warlock, with Adam Warlock. For those who don't know, he's referenced in the comic book, obviously a big part of the comic book references, right, to the Infinity Gauntlet storyline. So they tease us with it in Guardians of the Galaxy. They say that he's coming. Your homegirl, what's her name? The villain in Guardians of the Galaxy 2. She teases, about Adam. Why do you think the studio or them in general, whoever's decision it was, why do you think that they just literally diverged from him? Because they already teased us with it. They gave the little nod at the end. Why do you think that they pivoted? Alberto, I'll start with you.
Well, if you think about it, at that point, they were literally ready to go to start with the Infinity War, and they just didn't want, I guess, maybe not to throw fans out of the whole build-up, and then bring in this other new character, which obviously is important, but at the same time can probably, I don't know, throw some fans away, or those regular Joe Schmo fans out of the franchise. And they just want to say, like, hey, we kind of feel like something big is going to happen, so like, let's show it to me, kind of thing.
Tony, what do you think? And then I have a follow-up question for that.
Honestly, in my personal opinion, I would say that they don't want to pull another Vision. What I mean by that is Age of Ultron, with the introduction of Vision, how he came to. Again, the movie was critically received well, because again, everyone goes out to see Marvel Cinematic Universe movies up until this point because they thought it was going to be another Avengers like kind of turning point for the franchise, so to speak. But I think they didn't want to have literally 18 different movies of the characters we know and love up until this point to deal with what Thanos is about to do in Infinity War, to just have some guy just wake up from a coffin and be like, I got this. You know what I mean? The same reason why they probably didn't want, even with the introduction of Captain Marvel, to just
right. I was just going to say that.
Yeah, to just show up and be like, hey guys, I got this. Because it would just, not only would it piss off a lot of fanboys, but it would just piss off the general audience, because it's just like, first of all, who the hell is this guy, and why so many, like, why is he so powerful? And last time I checked, maybe that person's more powerful, or maybe that character is more powerful. So they didn't want to introduce someone like that to just be able to be like, hey, enough with this, like, I got this, I'm taking care of Thanos, we'll figure it out from there. Like, they didn't want to emulate that. Instead, they just wanted to have a build up, with the sense of dread, with the sense of hopelessness, the fracturing that came from Civil War.
Right.
They wanted to show that we are weaker divided, but stronger together. And at that point, with Infinity War, Thanos shows up and all the Avengers are scattered. So with that being said, it's just how they dealt with it up to that point. We'll divulge later.
Right. We'll go into that later. And the only thing, though, I was going to say in this, and you're right, that is very true to bring up, as far as like somebody, and for those who don't know, pretty much Adam Warlock assembles everybody and leads the charge against Thanos, right? When he uses the stones and does everything, right? But my challenge question too, and I had this written down, is, so then why even bother introducing Captain Marvel so late if we weren't really going to lean on her? Because that's what a lot of like fan theories that I saw, people that like, follow along. And from what I was reading on Reddit, like, oh, they introduced Captain Marvel because they're going to make her take Adam Warlock's part in coming in and just saving everybody. I'll start with you, Alberto. What do you think about that?
Well, basically what we were just talking about, in the sense of just introducing a character, that character being overpowered, and then just leading into the war. That's exactly what happened with Captain Marvel. Captain Marvel was just introduced like, hey, I'm Captain Marvel. I supersede everyone. And that kind of put a bad taste in a lot of people's mouths, whether they're, cult classic friends, or whether they're just, somewhat fans that started from the beginning. And then in itself, it kind of leads off to what they were trying to build up. Like you said, with the whole Civil War. If you think about it, the Infinity War actually started completely separate to how every other Avenger movie started, where everybody's together, they're having a good time, joking around, this and the third.
They're having drinks. Yeah.
Like that Age of Ultron reference right
Age
there.
of Ultron. Yeah, they're having drinks and partying it up.
Yeah, exactly. If you think about it, it's literally the division of the Avengers. So how every other single movie started where they're together, the Infinity War starts, everyone's separate. So the way that the movie starts is basically after Ragnarok. And at that point, the Avengers that we know, that we're accustomed to, is not the Avengers. Everyone's just separate because of the Civil War that they had. So it's kind of a perfect time for Thanos to come in and just start wreaking havoc, because they're not united.
Tony, what do you think about Captain Marvel's introduction so late in the game?
Was it necessary? No. But I mean, was it a welcome addition? I mean, I don't know. I mean, to be brutally honest, her introduction, or even the character or the actress playing her, was just shrouded with controversy. But at the end of the day, I don't necessarily mind it. It's just how they portrayed. Again, they portrayed her as she was going to play not only a part into being able to deal with Thanos, but to become an integral part of how they resolve the issue of Thanos, which is what a lot of people had a problem with. Because again, you have 18 films leading up until this point with introducing several different characters, the Avengers, and how they're going to deal with the problem and conflict that is Thanos. And then you have someone who's coming late in the game, and they basically remedy that time frame of the reason why she was late in the game was because guess what? Nick Fury met her back when she was, when Nick Fury was a lot younger and wasn't in the position that he's in S.H.I.E.L.D., and they became friends, and that's why she was able to come into the fray very late in the game. But at the end of the day, it's just, she's here. I have no problem with her in the comics. Again, maybe they're building up to, again, just based on speculation, They're building up to just introducing her character now so that she would play a part in Civil War 2, maybe possibly Secret Invasion. Again, this is just all speculation because we don't know how the Marvel Cinematic Universe is going to divulge after Phase 4 based on the the information that has been provided. But I figured they needed to throw her hat into the gauntlet at this point because she does play an integral role into those storylines to begin with. So that's my 2 cents at least.
I love it, man, and I actually completely agree with you. And to piggyback off that, I actually kind of waited to this moment to tell you guys that my recasting would have been her. To be brutally honest with you, I love Brie Larson in general, and all the other projects that she's done as an actor. So, like, shout out to you, Brie. Like, you've done amazing work. I personally think from from the bits and pieces that I've read about Captain Marvel, I think that her energy, I don't know if it was the best to me, I would say, to portray that it came on screen. The movie was great and entertaining. I just feel like if I was a producer, maybe I would have casted somebody else. Not sure. Not sure how you guys feel about that personally, but I think I would have maybe reconsidered that role. What do you think, Alberto?
It all depends because at the end of the day, if you think about the movie, the Infinity War, both of them, it all depends how much playtime do you want to give her? Because there's so many actors, so many characters you have to fit in. It all honestly depends how much you really wanted to. And what Tony was talking about, that making her the integral role into the movie, which we'll talk about later, you have to decide, introducing her in the beginning, whether you're going to do that or not. And their decision is kind of like, I don't know what you're doing, to be honest, because they introduce her like, hey, she's a character, but at the same time, you're not showing her true form, her true self, which she's supposed to be a whole lot more than what the movie showed.
Correct. And you're referring to the comic books. But so Exactly. Then that's what I'm saying. Like once you've made that decision to cast her, it's like we spoke about earlier in the pod. That's it. Like you're with her for the next 5 to 7 years. So she has to lead, Avengers part 5, like whatever it might be down the road, she needs to be an integral part. And I feel like I wanted, personally speaking myself, somebody I think a little bit more charismatic than her. I think if I had to,
No, I agree. I would have picked someone else. Who specifically? I wouldn't know because I would personally try to aim for someone that's geared more to someone that's Captain Marvel.
Well,
I don't know, Jessica Biel, maybe.
I mean, no. If I had to choose somebody,
a recast? Nah, chill.
We have a recast for Captain Marvel. I mean, we're gonna go, balls deep in it. Fuck it. I would have to say Charlize Theron.
Why would you pick Charlize? We all love Charlize, by the way. We're very biased, so shout out to Charlize. all three of us. But I was gonna say, but the challenge question is, why would she portray Captain Marvel from the comic books the best? That's my challenge question to you, Tony.
Well, that's, in my personal opinion, I would say that would be pretty easy because based on the acting skills alone of Brie Larson, she brings an energy that's incredibly stoic. Charlize Theron brings experience. Not to knock anything that Brie Larson has done because she is, of course, an Emmy-winning actress. But when it comes to portraying someone with the amount of power, the amount of energy, with the amount of presence in a scene, Charlize Theron would have done that 10 times better than any other person. And at the end of the day, based on look alone, I mean, they're both dirty blondes. Captain Marvel isn't necessarily young, neither is Brie Larson, so to speak. But, we had to really choose one or the other. Bar none, if you were to choose Charlize Theron in that same outfit or Brie Larson in that outfit, and if you had to choose the acting skill of one or the other, it'd be a no-brainer.
No, but then you also have to lead into, if you bring in Charlize Theron, then she's going to pull a lot more weight than Brie. So that means that you're going to have to give her more screen time, more this, that, and the third, because it's Charlize Theron.
That's true. That is very true. That is very true. But listen, thank you, fellas. We're going to cut it off there. We're going to do our official Avengers review. Catch us on the next podcast. Once again, this has been A Beautiful Film. Thank you, Alberto. Thank you, Tony. Check you on the next one.